Hey, what's up? Zach here. And you know, the Nike G.T Jump 2 has really been kind of my most anticipated shoe this year, the one I've really been looking forward to see where Nike was going to go with the lineup, especially because the G.T Jump 1 was just so stocked with cool tech, and it really did work for just how much they threw into it. It all did work really well together. And I will say the GT Jump 2 is a little bit of a departure from the GT Jump 1, and then in other ways it's kind of the same. But there are some certain pitfalls to these that are probably going to make you really like them, or maybe want to pass or go back to the GT Jump 1. Let's find out what they are. Here we go. Now the uppers of the GT Jump honestly are a triumph in my opinion. I know I sound like Ted Mosby from How I Met Your Mother, but they really are. I mean, they found a way to make them uber breathable, but also uber maximalist. Look at the breathability test on these. They only heated up 117.3 degrees, then cooled down another 57.6 degrees. And to me, for that maximalist of a shoe, is really darn good. That really comes down to the Leno weave in these. And yeah, this is a true Leno weave. If you look at it under the microscope, there is a double helix of that TPU wrapping around those textile threads going through there. But it's not just that it's a Leno weave that's ultra strong. You know, for me, I think it was around 91, 92 degrees core temperature the last day I played in these. And really, my feet felt better than in some more minimalist shoes that I've tried this year. They're just an ultra breezy shoe. Now, if you look at the lace line, speaking of those uppers, I mean, this lace line is number one, reinforced throughout the entire line, but number two has one strap going into the strobe board in the midfoot, kind of right junction, midfoot, forefoot, as well as some flight wire in the back of it that goes into the strobel from the heel. But the real hero of that lace line is this double lace eyelet system here in the second to last lace eyelet. So if you want, you can actually lace through the more proximal or distal hole, and if you lace through the more proximal one, you get an even stronger tie down from that second to last eyelet. Then the last one is up pretty high in the ankle collar. So really, no matter how you're lacing these, you are getting an incredible lockdown in them. But if you look at them on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, and speaking of being strong, I mean, the burr barely makes an impression on the drag guard. The only thing I don't like is that the rubber does kind of meet the foam and then it meets the uppers. So if you are a dragger, you're going to start wearing down the foam first. However, purely just looking at the uppers, they are pretty darn strong. And before I get into all the air in the midsole, I do want to make mention of the air in the ankle collar. And I know a lot of people think this is just window dressing or just kind of for decoration. However, these do serve a pretty important purpose because, you know, this shoe is meant for more of a big player, somebody probably playing in the paint a lot, rebounding a lot, someone that's getting into a lot of foot-to-foot combat, and having these air chambers on the medial and lateral sides of your ankle does protect them from a lot of blunt trauma. And even though, yeah, I think they are meant to look cool, they definitely do serve a purpose. And getting into the most talked about part of the GT Jump line is obviously the midsole on the teardown. Now, before I actually got into the meat of the midsole, I was actually talking about this in the member section. And also, by the way, I actually changed the member section now. I just made it one tier. It's just all 99 cents for early extended cut teardown videos and the badges and emojis. So there is no more tiers. So if you do want to check it out, it is just 99 cents across the board now. However, what I was talking about in the extended cut video was that the removable insole is actually a 2-layer foam insole, where they actually put a little bit more kind of like the light airy foam here in the heel, and then more kind of like the thick, you know, a little bit more absorptive foam in the forefoot. So remember, both these are going to bottom out at some point. However, it is pretty interesting that they put a 2-layer removable insole into the shoe. Now getting into the real meat of the midsole, this number one has a full-length Zoom strobel unit. Right under that it is just a kind of just Nike Phylon, and then under that in the rear foot is a giant slab of Nike React foam. Now that does replace Zoom Air from previous models. However, you still do have the tandem Zoom Air units in the forefoot. But more than the different air systems in the GT Jump 2, it's the jump frame that really makes this shoe what it is, makes it so efficient, so easy to get up off the ground. Now that PebX jump frame goes all the way from the heel into the forefoot. You can basically think of it as just one long shank. Now this PebX plate is not the same as in the GT Jump 1, whereas that jump frame came up a lot higher, especially on the arch of the GT Jump 1, gave it a little bit more stability both in inversion and eversion, whereas in the GT Jump 2, it is really just plantar based and really is just meant to be a launching pad for you. So the twos definitely aren't as like side to side or inversion, eversion stable as the ones were. However, they are a much more forgiving shoe underfoot. I mean, if you look at them on the bounce height test, got 38 centimeters centimeters in the heel and 43.5 centimeters in the forefoot. And I think the reason that this Zoom Strobel unit wasn't allowed to really pop that ball bearing up from the rear foot is the fact that there is React foam here under the heel. And React foam, for how great it is, how forgiving it is more of an absorptive foam. It is not pushing a lot back up to you. So whereas in the forefoot it's contacting Zoom Strobel, then the AirPod, and then the jump frame, in the rear foot, you're getting a lot more of that absorption versus in the ones where it was just one more unit of zoom in there. And moving further down south to the outsole tread, this is more of like an all-weather tire type tread on these. Now the rear foot has a decent wave on the medial and lateral side. There is a tread bridge connecting the rear foot to the forefoot, which does make this even more of an efficient shoe, because anytime you load one part of the shoe, the other one is kicking back at you, namely when you're loading the forefoot, the rear foot's yanking back at you, giving a little bit more of a push. However, in the forefoot, the tread is just a little bit kind of wide set, a little bit narrow. So, on a very well-maintained indoor court, they grip fine. Dusty courts, really slick outdoor painted courts though, the grip on these just isn't like something else with a little bit more of a monster truck tread to them. But, what these really meant for is, well-maintained indoor courts. And when you put them on those, they do grip very well. Now, if you look at the speed ratio of the GT Jump 2, they come in at a 2.38. And for a shoe as maximalist as it is, for, a big player type shoe, I think that speed ratio is pretty darn good. I noticed when I was bounding down the court in these, and I can actually say that in these, because I actually was bounding, whereas in most of them I'm trotting, you really do feel that each stride is really assisted, number one, by the jump frame, but number two, the tandem zoom air units that are actually contained in that jump frame, these little clips here in these tandem zoom air units, it really allows them to load energy very efficiently. So if you're putting a lot of energy into those zoom air pods, they're going to give a ton back because that jump frame is really allowed to load in those specific areas. I think that's why, aside from the full length jump frame, that little part of the jump frame is really giving you that bounding feeling going down the court. And on the opposite side of that, on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, this is the XDR rubber. There was still a millimeter of damage. That's because the tread is just pretty narrow. There's really nothing to shield it. There's no surface area to share the heat produced from all that friction. So, to me, if you're gonna put these on a really gritty outdoor asphalt court, just get ready for them to, wear down, or make sure that your footwork is kind of very light and airy and that you're not sliding or dragging a lot, because if you are, they're gonna wear down pretty quick. And I would say on the indoor courts, they should be just fine. The non-XDR rubber version of this is going to grip a lot better than the XDR rubber on these. So I think the XDR on this is honestly kind of unnecessary, because to me, this is more of an indoor hardwood or rubberized or carpet shoe. And for those surfaces, I think just their regular tread profile is going to be just fine. And getting into the fit of the GT Jump 2, this is where I was actually a little bit nervous, because a lot of the Nike and Jordan brand shoes I've been trying on recently have been pretty unforgiving. However, on the GT Jump 2, because of the Leno weave on the uppers on them, and just because they are pretty maximalist, they actually hold their shape pretty well. I had no cramping in these. And I don't think that these really have that much wider of a last than the non-XDR version of these. The other ones I've seen recently, the last have not been kind of as wide as they used to be. So I'd say a narrow medium foot and go true to size. A 2E, if you really want a performance fit on these, I went true to size, had no problems in these. 4E, I think you can go up 1/2 size. The thing is, with these maximalist shoes, you want to get them as close to 1-to-1 as possible, because once you start getting them too heavy on you, you're going to start to lose the best parts of them, and those tandem zoom air units are going to start to not line up with your metatarsal heads, and that's how you get the most out of them. And in terms of the snake bitten foot, honestly, with an orthotic or without an orthotic, these are absolutely tremendous. Ball of foot pain, heel pain, that React foam is unbelievable. The jump frame, because it is loaded underneath of the React foam, does not give any feelings of hardness or unforgiveness under the heel. These are probably one of the best shoes out right now for heel pain, if not the best shoe out right now. The one thing they're not the best for is an ankle sprainer, because you are sitting up so high in the shoe, and because that jump frame, like I said, is all plantar based. So there is a lot between you and the ground, so there's not as much of a court feel or court sensation underneath of your foot. So I'd say pretty much anything besides a real chronic ankle sprainer is going to do really well with this. Now, getting into the playability of the GT Jump 2, I really think that the name of the game for these is forgiveness. Now, they got that React foam heel, which we talked about in the midsole teardown, a lot like the Sabrina one. And because it's a lot like the Sabrina one, it's so forgiving to be falling backwards or to be fading away. And that transition step when you're fading away or just, running backwards is just so easy in these. It just feels so good. I like how there's kind of a maximalist option to that versus the Sabrina one, which is a little bit more of that minimalist option. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want in the Nike range. Now, the next thing is like the GT Jump 1, the forefoot of these, or just kind of the overall feeling of balance and springiness is really second to none. These things have a launch to them that is frankly unmatched. And what I noticed is I was playing at one of the courts, and this was about my second day in them, and I was starting to feel pretty good. I've been playing a lot more basketball recently outside, so I've been feeling a little better. And I just noticed, I thought the rim had kind of fallen down on the hoop, and no, it was just that, I was just feeling a lot easier getting into the air. And obviously my vertical isn't anything to, write home about, but even me, I could kind of feel that I was just getting that extra half second in the air, just that little bit more time to do maybe something creative with these. But remember, the biggest prerequisite of the GT Jump 2 to really extract the most playability out of it is that you have to be able to put enough energy into the system. If you're someone that's a lot more lightweight, or you're just not putting a lot of force into your shoes, you're not gonna get all the benefits of the jump frame, the zoom air, and just kind of everything that the GT Jump 2 gives you. So if you are someone that has, pretty strong leg muscles, a little bit more of a bulky player like me who can put a lot of energy into them, that's when that system is gonna start working for you. And just like the GT Jump 1, these are a rebounder's dream shoe. They will just allow you to bounce up and down, up and down, up and down, over and over. Your legs are not going to get tired. So if you are someone that really does pride themselves on getting an offensive board, or trying to go up for a block, or just really anything where, like I said, you're really going into combat in the paint and trying to contest a lot of rebounds, this is going to be definitely, if not one of the best, shoe of the year for that. I think that's why it's such a good match for somebody like Jokic, who is just a huge player, can put so much force into them, and that jump frame can, number one, handle that force, but also kind of turn that back into more kinetic energy coming, back up the leg. These aren't the shiftiest things out there. That the grip on them, it isn't, the most tacky out there, and it's honestly not going to matter. And if you're heavy enough for these, you're going to put so much weight into them that you're going to get, good grip just by the force and the weight you're putting into the court. So, honestly, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the GT Jump 2. Do you like it that the jump frame was kind of made a little bit more minimalist on these, or are you more looking to pick up, old colorways, the GT Jump 1 that's probably going on sale right about now? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to see their sibling to the GT Jump 2, the Nike Sabrina 1, which I said has kind of that similar rear foot setup, which is just so nice, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam, and I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse, or I guess on the buddy bench.